Nzuri sana. Habari yako?
Nzuri sana, you're good?
I'm good.
Welcome to this class. Ndio nataka tu kuanza saa hizi.
Thank you.
All right. So, last time we made an introduction to each chapter into the law of thought. It's called the law of thought. Na tukasema a thought is whereby you have an obligation and you have an obligation and you fail to honor that obligation. You have an obligation not to defame others. You have an obligation not to interfere with the privacy of others. You have an obligation not to be a nuisance. You have an obligation not to be negligent. Unajua unaweza kuwa negligent, you cause damage to other people. You're a doctor, unafanya watu surgery, unasahau makasi ndani ya tumbo. Ni negligence. So, all right. So nikasema today I will start with something called liability in tort or tortious liability. Tortious liability. Leo nitaanzia hapo mbali kulitiwa tortious liability, tortious liability, tortious liability, tortious liability, tortious liability, tortious liability. So say this, yeah? Liability in tort is based on two principles. Liability in tort is based on two principles. Liability in tort is based on two principles. Number one, let me spell this word so that we guys can vizuri. Number one, Dunham, D-A-M-N-U-M. Dunham, sin injuria, sin is S-I-N-E, injuria is I-N-G-U-R-I-A. Dunham is D-A-M-N-U-M, Dunham. Sin is S-I-N-E, sin, then injuria, I-N-J-U-R-I-A, injuria. See this? This means Dunham sin injuria. Dunham, D-A-M-N-N-U-M, D-A-M-N-U-M, Dunham, sin, S-I-N-E, injuria, I-N-J-U-R-I-A, Dunham sin injuria. So, Dunham sin injuria. This means a person has caused actual damages to another. This means a person has caused actual damages to another. This means a person has caused actual damages to another. This means a person has caused actual damages to another, but without any legal damages. 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 Say this. You cannot succeed as a complainant. You cannot succeed as a complainant. You cannot succeed as a complainant in a legal action. Although you have suffered a loss. Although you have suffered a loss. Although you have suffered a loss. Because none of your legal rights have been interfered with. Because none of your legal rights has been interfered with. Because none of your legal rights has been interfered with. Because none of your legal rights has been interfered with. E.g., damages as a result of business competition. 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 So if you're competing and you suffer losses, mtu ametook away your customers. Na of course alichukua your customers, maybe aliwaambia hoteli yako ipikange chakula mzuri. Of course ameharibia hoteli jina. But siwe amekuharibia jina. See, I don't know if it's coming home. The hotel has suffered some loss. You're not the one who has suffered a loss. And you're losing customers as a result of the competition. So it is damages without injury. It means what? Damnum sin injury means what? Damages without injuries. Damages without injuries. You know, if I assault you, mtu akakuassault, akupige kibare, kofi, kishebeshi, mtu akakushebeshi, hiyo ni injury. Hiyo ni assault or battery. Is injury. You see? But if your business reputation is harmed, you are not the one who has been harmed. It is your business that has been harmed. So it is damages without injury. Let's go to the next one. Injurious indanum. Those who are joining us right now, unasikia tu words, unashangaa hizo words zinamaanisha nini? Injuria is N-I-N-J-U-R-I-A. J-U-R-I-A. Injuria. Sin is S-I-N-E, sin. Then danum, D-A-M-N-U-M. Injurious indanum. This principle means a person has suffered a legal damage. This means a person has suffered legal damage, but without actual damage. This means a person has suffered legal damage, but without actual damage. This means a person has suffered legal damage, but without actual damage. The complainant can succeed. Remember, the complainant cannot succeed. Today we are saying the complainant can succeed in a legal action. The complainant can succeed in a legal action because the complainant can succeed in a legal action because although he has not suffered any actual damage, the complainant can succeed in a legal action because although he has not suffered any actual damages, his legal rights have been violated. The complainant can succeed in legal action because although he has not suffered any actual damage, his legal rights have been violated. E.g., trespass to land. Yeah, so if you trespass on my land, remember I have a right of privacy. I have a right of what? Privacy. So if you trespass on my land, you have infringed on my legal rights. So there is injury, but no damages. You can actually your statement. There is injury. Yes, injury means that the rights have been affected, but not damages on me per se. But my right of privacy has been affected. If I'm in a house and you throw stones of Vio, I can sue you. Why? You have disrupted my comfort. I have a right of comfort. And you have thrown stones, you're causing chaos. No, that is injury without damages. Very good. Let's go to the next thing. Subtopic, malice in tort. M-A-L-I-C-E, malice in tort. Malice. Say malice. Malice. M-A-L-I-C-E, malice. See this. Malice means acting from a bad motive. Malice means acting from a bad motive. Carlos, how are you doing? I hope you write this down. Malice means acting from a bad motive. The general rule is that a defendant's motive is irrelevant. The general rule is that a defendant's motive is irrelevant. Meaning that A good motive will not excuse, meaning that a good motive will not excuse, a good motive will not excuse a tortious part, meaning that a good motive will not excuse a tortious part. And similarly, a bad motive will not make a law, and similarly, a bad motive will not make a law of act into a tort. So maybe full stop. However, semicolon, point one. A defendant can be sued. However, a defendant can be sued for acting in malice. A defendant can be sued for acting in malice in procedural law. A defendant can be sued to act in malice in procedural law. Next one. In the case of nuisance, a defendant can also be sued for malice. In the case of nuisance, a defendant can also be sued for malice. In the case of nuisance, yani mtu alikuwa anafanya intentionally. Alikuwa anaweka muziki saa 8 ya usiku. Juu aliambiwa asiweke muziki tena. The case of nuisance, a plaintiff can be sued for malice. First one is called malice in tort. Malice in what? Tort. Malice means acting from a bad what? Motive. Ushaona mtu kwa natu mtu anataka kukuumiza. Yeah? Lakini huwezi fanya kitu. Hajafanya. If we sued people for their intentions, everybody would be in jail right now. If we sued people for their intention, ati ninaona ni kama unataka kunifanyia, everybody would be in prison right now. We don't sue people for their intention. We sue them for what they have done. For what they have done, your actions. But then also we are saying, where this procedural law, there's a procedure that was supposed to be followed, we can sue someone for malice. Because someone can deliberately fail to follow a procedure so that they hurt someone else. That's a tort. Okay? Also, somebody can cause a nuisance. Plot imeandikwa, no loud music past 9 p.m. Please. Then mtu fulani aambiwa wewe unaweka muziki loud, alafu akasiriki. Hiyo siku weke muziki usiku mzima loud. Hiyo ni malice, yani mtanidu. You gonna get hiyo sasa. So he's being sued for malice, whereby we are seeing not only is he becoming a nuisance, but he's doing whatever he's doing out of bad motive. So here. Next subtopic. General defenses in tort. General defenses in tort. General defenses in tort. These are the defenses that one can use. These are the defenses that one can use to justify his acts or omissions. These are the acts. These are the defenses that one can use to justify his acts or omissions in order to escape from liability. In order to escape from liability. These are the defenses that one can use in order to justify his act or omissions in order to escape from what? Liability. So unajiteteaje? Number 1, volenti non fit injuria. Volenti is V-O-L-E-N-T-I. Volenti, V-O-L-E-N-T-I. Volenti non, N-O-N, none. Fit,
F-I-T, injuria. I-N-J-U-R-I-A, volenti non fit injuria, volenti non fit injuria. Now let me ask you this question, Chris. If you go to play ball with the boys, what is likely to happen? Can the ball get rough? If it gets rough, what is likely to happen? Somebody can get hurt. But do you still play? Yes. So you have accepted the risk. You see, you have accepted, because you can't sue someone for they broke your leg while playing football. Because they'll tell you, you know, when play football, the game can get rough, umie. But it is a ball, so much is a ball. Si ushaona mse fulani atakanyanga mtu, unamuona tu venye anacheza na bila kumrukia. Hakuna malice, hakuna nini. Lakini you can't sue him for that malice. Na hata anaweza mvunja mguu. Mkenda koti aseme tukicheza ball alivunji. Alikubali, alijua mtu akicheza ball anaweza vunjika nini? Mguu. That's what unaona even in the world of football. Hata Cristiano akanyangwa avunjwe mguu na nani? He can't go to court and say that person is ati amevunja mguu, because it is volenti non fit injury. Sema hivi. This means voluntary assumption of risk. This means voluntary assumption of risk. This means voluntary assumption of risk. See this? The defendant is not liable for the injury. The defendant is not liable for the injury because the plaintiff assumed the risk voluntarily. Because the plaintiff assumed the risk voluntarily and in the process suffered damage. Because the plaintiff assumed risk voluntarily and in the process suffered damage. Very good. E.g., injuries resulting from sport. E.g., injury resulting from sport. Next one, surgical operations. So whenever you're doing those things, that's what I'm talking about. Hospitali kufanyiwa surgery, unambuanga usign, unasema anything can happen. Anything can? Lakini of course imaanisha ati wamuue. Wakikuwa negligent, unaweza prove walikuwa negligent, you can sue them. But generally, when surgery is going on, anything can happen. Okay. Hapo chini sema hivi. However, this defense shall not apply in the following two instances. A, rescue cases. Say this. A person who voluntarily takes a risk to save a life. A person who voluntarily undertakes a risk to save a life. A person who voluntarily assumes a risk to save a life. A person who voluntarily takes a risk to save a life. A person who voluntarily takes a risk to save a life or property. Employment cases. Where an employee voluntarily takes a risk. That results in damage. When an employee voluntarily undertakes a risk that results in damage in an effort to protect his employment.
in an effort to protect his employment. So here you can't claim for voluntary non-fit injury. So that is that. That's the first defense you can use. The second defense, inevitable accident. The second defense, inevitable accident. See this? A defendant who is able to establish that, a defendant who is able to establish that, a defendant who is able to establish that, the damage caused to the plaintiff, the damage caused the plaintiff was due to an inevitable accident. The damage caused the plaintiff was due to an inevitable, an inevitable accident. An inevitable accident, comma, may escape liability. May escape liability. May escape liability. Very good. May escape liability. Very good. All right. Next one. So maybe easy. An inevitable accident is that which cannot be prevented. An inevitable accident is that which cannot be prevented. An inevitable accident is that which cannot be prevented. By use of ordinary skills, care, or caution. An inevitable accident is that which cannot be prevented by use of ordinary skill, care, or caution. Yes, is you. Very good. Haya, so kama unaweza prove ingeweza zuia hiyo accident, na hata kama ungejaribu kuzuia ingezuilika, you'll escape punishment. Next one, act of God. Ama act of nature. Act of God ama act of nature. A defendant who is able to establish that the damage was suffered. A defendant who is able to establish that the damage suffered. A defendant who is able to establish that the damage suffered by the plaintiff. A defendant who is able to establish that the damage suffered by the plaintiff was caused by forces. Beyond human control, was caused by forces beyond human control, will escape liability. A defendant who is able to establish the damage suffered by the plaintiff was caused by forces beyond human control, will escape liability. E.g., earthquake, comma, storm, e.g., earthquake, comma, storm, lightning. Can you imagine you're driving your car? You're driving your what? Na uko kwa two-way unateremka gari yako. And then lightning ichape lami. Deitima. Lightning ikichapa barabara, what will you do? Very good, you swerve. Ukiswerve, you are likely to brush somebody's car, isn't it? It's an inevitable accident. It's also an accident that has been caused by an act of nature. Or gari yako ulikuwa umepaka mahali vizuri, earthquake ikatokea. Gari yako ikasonga ikaenda ikagonga gari nyingine. So tambo lipe aje hiyo gari nyingine, go for kulipa. It's an act of nature. It is the act of nature that caused that car to come there, not the other one. It's not you, it's not your fault. All right. So, next one, necessity. Necessity. So this, a defendant may escape liability. A defendant may escape liability by establishing that the defendant may escape liability by establishing that he or she interfered with the rights of the plaintiff
that he or she interfered with the rights of the plaintiff in order to prevent a bigger danger. The defendant may escape liability by establishing that he or she interfered with the rights of the plaintiff in order to prevent a bigger danger. The defendant may escape liability by establishing that he or she interfered with the rights of the plaintiff in order to prevent a bigger danger. Next one. This is because the welfare of the people is more supreme than that of the individual. This is because the welfare of the people is more supreme than that of the individual. This is because the welfare of the people is more supreme than that of the individual. So, Robbie, think about it this way. There you are, and somebody is about to cause injury to so many people. Mtu anataka kulipua maybe bomb. Ako pale na kuna bomb anataka kulipua bomb. And there you are, arrested, umemuona. You walk behind him, unamshika, unamchoke, unamnyonga, ana pass out. So of course umemu-assault. Umemu-assault ni kweli, hiyo ni assault, lakini kama ungemu-assault ningefanyika. Watu wengi wangefariki. Unaona sasa, so you have prevented a bigger danger. So that's your defense necessity. Next one, self-defense. Self-defense. So maybe a defendant has the right to use self-defense. A defendant has the right to use reasonable force. A defendant has the right to use reasonable force in order to defend himself. In order to defend himself, comma, in order to defend himself, comma, his property, or persons dear to him. A defendant has the right to use reasonable force in order to defend himself, comma, his property, or persons dear to him. However, the force should be equal to the threat, not excess. However, the force should be equal to the threat, not excess. So somebody is threatening you and your baby. Okay, umemshika, umemsubdue, umemfinya mkono. Hello. But then, after umemfinya mikono, unataka kumkanyanga kichwa, umvunje kichwa. Unataka kumstop. How? Umemshika, umemfunga vizuri, umemfunga miguu labda. Alikuwa anakuthreaten na watoto wako, yes. Ama mtu mlikuwa unaendesha gari, alafu akaanza kuendesha vibaya karibu akugonge, mkatoka mkabishana. Kaambia wewe, alafu akaanza kutaka kukugonga. Now that umemfinya mahali, unataka tena kuchukua gari tena mgonge tena. That is use of unreasonable force. You need to self-defense. Self-defense. Usipitishe for excessive. Don't use excessive force. The next one, statutory authority. A person who is able to establish that, the act complained about by the plaintiff, a person who is able to establish that, the act complained about by the plaintiff, is authorized by a statute. A person is able to establish that the act complained about by the plaintiff is authorized by a statute, comma, may escape liability, e.g. policeman, Hapo chini sema hivi, power and water personnel may enter into somebody's premises. Power and water personnel may enter into somebody's premises while performing their duties. Power and water personnel may enter into somebody's premises while performing their duties. However, They should not exceed their authority. However, they should not exceed their authority. However, they should not exceed their authority. Okay, now police might be searching for someone. So police enter door by door looking for that person. So police come into your house, they check under the bedroom, under the bed, they check inside the fridge, they check under the sofa set. Wakipata yupo, they should go, si ndio? But then police anaanza kusema tunuka bangi hapa. Sasa wewe hujakuja kutafuta bangi, umekuja kutafuta nini? Arrest warrant yako inasema nini? Umekuja kutafuta mtu amescape, tafuta huyo mtu na uende. Mambo ya bangi ya nyumba yangu uache. That's the kind of thinking that we have in here, whereby police have been given the authority, yes, but that authority is also limited. So that is that. The last defense, mistake. Maybe in case there is a false, F-A-L-S-E, in case there is a false imprisonment. In case there is a false imprisonment, false, F-A-L-S-E, false imprisonment, or malicious prosecution, the defendant may escape liability. By establishing that the defendant may escape liability by establishing that it was done out of mistaken identity. It was done out of mistaken identity. Mistaken identity. Very good. September 28th. September? Trouble. Someone I told them, I'll call them. September 28th. When is today? October 4th. Many nine. Let's continue. So that is our introduction to tort. Tumesema what is a tort? What is a tortious liability? Injury without damages and damages without injury. Then we looked at what is malice. Malice is the ill motive or the bad motive or intention. Hello? You have an intention, but we can't sue an intention. Have you ever had a bad intention towards someone? Unasikia kupiga mtu. Can you imagine ushisikia kupiga mtu? Imagine ulikolipenda kwa jana juu hiyo. So you can't sue someone for kusikia hivyo. It's an intention, but you have not done it. It's bad motive. Lakini you can't be sued for bad motive. You must act it out and then now we sue you. So that is that. And then the general defenses you can use. So kajipata mali umecommit negligence, umecommit trespass, umecommit nuisance ama defamation. Those are some of the defenses you can use. Hello. For example, unaweza kutana beshte yako mwenye mtani unasalimiana na tukanana, mjinga siku mingi sijakuona. You ever see friends come out? Ng'ombe hii sijui nini, kuna wanaongeleshana hivyo. I don't know why they do that, yeah? Wanaongeleshana lakini kama wanatukanana. And then when usalimia mtu ng'ombe hii hapo bado si ng'ombe yako. Ng'ombe pole. Mistaken identity, siko na kutukana yeye. Normally mtu wangu namtaka pumpkin. Namtaka nini? Pumpkin. Namtaka malenge. Malenge, pumpkin. So you are there busy calling your person by pumpkin, malenge. Unapata siye, anakuambia unatukana malenge, mbona? Anakuambia sorry, it is not you. Mistaken identity. Kwa nini karibu kwa defamation? But you can't go around running after people and then you grab them alafu upate si wao, bali itakuwa assault. But then of course you may go to court and prove that walikuwa wanafanana na uone sana kweli ilikuwa mistaken identity. So those are some of the defenses you can be able to use. All right. Any question up to that point? Any question? All right, let's go to the next thing. The next thing is this: special liabilities in tort. Special liabilities in tort. Special liabilities in tort. Number one, occupier's liability. Number one, occupier's liability. Occupier's liability. Number two, strict liability. Number two, strict liability. Strict liability. Number three, vicarious. V-I-C-A-R-I-O-U-S. V-I-C-A-R-I-O-U-S. Vicarious liability. Lamek, how are you doing? It's been a while. You're good?
Yeah.
Good. So those are special liabilities in tort. Occupier's liability, strict liability, na mwisho ni nini? Vicarious liability. All right. Tuchukue ya kwanza, occupier's liability. Occupier's liability. Who ni landlord sasa? Your landlord has a responsibility to maintain the place. Your landlord should ensure your place is safe. Hello. That's why your landlord ameandika watch your head. Watch your head. Umeona maneno watch your head. Onyo, umbwa kali, usiingie hapa bila ruhusa. Watch out for fence, falling objects. Why? Because they're the one responsible for that premises safety. And should anyone suffer a loss, a damage while in the property, it is the landlord who's supposed to pay those persons. Mtu mwingine akikuja kwako, alafu ingie kwa nyumba na kanyange kawembe kamkate, na nafai kununua last place. Kanini mwenye nyumba? Yeye ndo ameacha wembe hapo chini. Unaona sasa? Ni responsibility yake ku provide a safe working space. Sasa very good. Sema hivi. Say this. An occupier is one who controls a premise. An occupier is one who controls a premise to some extent. An occupier is one who controls a premise to some extent. An occupier is one who controls a premise to an extent. A visitor is the one permitted within the premises. A visitor is the one permitted or allowed within the premises. A visitor is the one permitted or allowed within the premises. Say this. The occupier has a duty. The occupier has a duty to provide a safe. The occupier has a duty to provide a safe premise. The occupier has a what? Has a duty to provide a what? A safe premise for the visitor. Should the visitor suffer a loss or damage? Should the visitor suffer a loss or damage or injury within the premises, they shall hold the occupier liable. They shall hold the occupier liable. They shall hold the occupier liable. Yes, they shall hold the occupier liable. They shall hold the occupier liable. So hiyo ndio kwanza ndio nini? Occupier's liability. Andika hapo chini na different color. Defenses available to an occupier. Unaweza jitetea aje? You as an occupier, you are the one controlling your building. Unajitetea aje? What are your defenses? Number one, the visitor was given sufficient warning. 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 However, this will not apply to children. As I want to joke vizuri, if you want children, if you tell children, do not go climbing up the trees, what are those children going to do? They go climb up the trees. They say, oh, why is this uncle saying you don't climb trees? So nowadays I tell them, climb the trees, uanguke and ulie. I'm a bad uncle. You know, my sisters have children, very many children, and they bring them to the village sometimes during the holiday. So when they find me there, I see them, I tell them, whenever if I see them climbing the trees, I tell them, climb so that you fall, so that we can rush you somewhere to the hospital. They hear that, they don't climb. But if I tell them, don't climb, they say, hello. I don't know. I find it very interesting. So if I find them playing with fire, I tell them, keep playing. Then they don't catch. Because they wonder, why is this person telling us to catch the fire? But if you tell them don't, so the other day, someone overheard me telling them, so they went to report me, see, Uncle Ovea saying sorry. No, says context. Context. Not everybody receives the context, and therefore not everybody will understand you. Not everybody is going to understand. Believe me, you may do some things, ukidhani unafanya vizuri, somebody is looking at you and wondering what is wrong with you. Ni context, ana nini? Context. And it's like I can give you a short story about the president of Nigeria. President of Nigeria, I think it was 2007. This president had a girlfriend, and he used to go and visit the girlfriend. And whenever he used to go to visit the girlfriend, he used to go with his soldier, and the soldier would stand by the door, and the president would enter into the house of the girlfriend. And then one day, the president was screaming, "You'll kill me! I'm going to die!" And then the soldier rushed in very fast to save the president, and he found the president there sweating. And then told the president, "Mr. President, why do you want to die?" And then the president told him, "Is it your problem if I want to die?" Context. What? Context. People will not understand what it is that you're trying to say. Not everyone will understand. So, hapa ndo nasikia, you are given sufficient warning. But then you may also give someone a warning, but they don't understand the warning. Watch your head. Aende hivi mara ya kwanza aangalia, akirudi, do you think ata watch his head? Watch out for falling objects. You have to keep on reminding. You have to keep on reminding, because if you just don't put it just there and say you assume, people are going to see. People may not see it. Slippery floor, usiweke na uache. No, eka slippery floor, ikiwezekana ambia watu tunaendelea kuosha. Why? Because if you don't do that, not everyone is going to be able to see your warning sign, and they may suffer some injuries. Number 2, the visitor took the risk voluntarily. The visitor took the risk voluntarily. The visitor took the risk voluntarily. Next one. The occupier had hired an independent contractor. The occupier had hired an independent contractor to manage the premise. The occupier had hired an independent contractor to manage the premise. The occupier had hired an independent contractor to manage the premise. So here ndio hiyo. Say this. Therefore, the contractor is responsible. Therefore, the contractor is responsible. Therefore, the contractor is responsible. The injury caused to the visitor was due to the action of an independent contractor. The injury caused to the visitor. The injury caused to the visitor was due to the action of an independent contractor. Was due to the action of an independent contractor. Was due to the action of an independent contractor. Was due to the action of an independent contractor. Was due to the action of an independent contractor. The injury caused the visitor was due to the action of an independent contractor. So who should be sued? Not the occupier. It is the who? Independent contractor. Who's an independent contractor? Independent contractor is this. Chris, you own a building yako. Yes, no umeijenga ni yako. But you're not the one who manages it. Umeipatiana totally to someone else. They manage, they control everything there. Mtu anafanya kukupatia pesa hata ujuange anakuambianga nyumba hii imelipwa na hii na hii na hii nilitoa nikatoanisha hii ndio pesa imekutokea. Wewe you don't have nothing to do with the building. Wewe tu ni yako ulijenga. So that building is totally owned and controlled by the independent contractor, the agent of sorts. So if any injury was to happen to somebody there because of negligence, it is not you who should be sued. It is the independent contractor. Because umemwambia kama kuna mali stairs imeharibika, wewe tengeneza na pesa. Kama wewe fanye building ni kama ni yako, mimi usini involve kwa mambo yoyote. Don't ask me even for permission. You are in charge and in charge. Meaning I'm separate. You are in charge for the building. So if any injury was to happen to somebody while in that building, it is the independent contractor that will be held liable, not the owner of the building or the occupier. Ya kwanza inaitwa nini? Occupiers liability. Tuchukue ya kwanza, ya pili, strict liability. Tuchukue ya pili, strict liability. This rule is also known as liability without fault. This rule is also known as liability without fault. Or the rule of Rayland versus Fletcher, or the rule of Rayland, R-Y-L-A-N-D, Rayland versus Fletcher, F-L-E-T-C-H-E-R, Rayland versus Fletcher. This rule is known as the liability without tort, or the rule of Rayland versus Fletcher. It provides that a person who for his own purpose, brings anything on his land, which is likely to cause mischief, provides that a person who for his own purpose brings anything on his land which is likely to cause mischief, if it escapes, they must keep it at their own risk. And will be strictly liable for any damage, resulting from its escape. A person who for his own purpose brings anything on his land which is likely to cause mischief if it escapes, must keep it at his own risk and will be strictly liable for any damage resulting from its escape. So wewe ukiamua kuweka machiwawa ni sawa, weka machiwawa. Ziweke na weke mingi tena sana. Zikitoka zikuje zikule kuku zangu utanilipa. Utaniambia ati dogi zinakula kuku za nani? I'm saying this because back at the village there is a dog of my neighbor, tabia mbaya huyo. Ikiachiliwa inakuja kutafuta kuku, inakuja kwa compound yangu. Inakuja inakimbiza kuku inashika na uma kuku. Imagine. And the dogs in my compound don't eat the chickens. Yet this dog is coming all the way from the other compound to come and bite my chicken. So I just take a picture of it. And I tell the owner, hii dog yako kiachili inatorokange na kuja wapi? So do you want to mean that my chicken will not be safe in my compound? Na nimefence nimeweka vizuri kabisa. The dog inatafuta mahali inachimba inapita chini. Inakuja na nasikia kikuku zikimwa naipata ndio. So the next thing I was saying that doggy, when it comes, we are going to slash it so it dies. You know? Because it's eating the chicken. And then if you tell the owner, yes, atakulipa lakini mtasumbuana. Patia 200, 500, ambia. Even if the chicken comes, that's something else. You know, the chicken may go the roadside, zinakula tu huko zikizurura. Sasa, umekeep a dog. Umefunga ile German Shepherd. Halafu niachilie usiku. Mtu akipita hapo kwa barabara inamuuma. Unataka kuniambia atakuwa anapita kwa barabara. Mtu hajakuja kukimbia, anapita ende kwake. Alafu umwe anataka kumuuma. You have kept something on your land that if it escapes, it can cause damages to others. If it does escape and cause damage, you'll be the one to pay. Does it make sense? Umechimba shimo kwa compound yako. But then kumejaa maji. Alafu watu wamepita wakaanguka kwa hiyo shimo. Unasema sio shimo iko kwa shamba yangu. Then fence hiyo shamba yako. Ionekane ni ukweli mtu aliruka hiyo fence, akaingia ndani ya shamba yako akaenda akaingia ndani ya shimo. Strict. Sema hivi. In this strict liability, negligence is irrelevant. Negligence is irrelevant. Negligence is irrelevant. I.e., even if you took reasonable care to prevent the escape, even if you took reasonable care to prevent the escape, even if you took reasonable care to prevent the escape, you will still be held liable. You will still be held liable. Say this. It also applies to the accumulation. It also applies to the accumulation of things like water. It also applies to the accumulation of things like water, electricity. It also applies to the accumulation of things like water, electricity, dangerous animals, chemical substances, etc. It also applies to the accumulation of things like water, electricity, dangerous animals, chemical substances, etc. Mtu akona gas. Anajua ina leak, nataki kuifunga. Mtu mnafaa mfanyie nini? Na mkishika plot moja. Huyu jamaa anafungulia gas na anaenda. Mtu mnafaa kumfanyia nini? Namwambia, yeah, anaachilia gas na zinawaka inazimika ameenda. Hiyo gas inaweza chomeka. Ikichomeka nani ataumia? Neighbors plus. Yeah, kwanza, then the next. So we will stop him and the victim because he's trying to cause damages to us. His intention now, action, inaonekana it's a bad motive. Very good. For this rule to apply, the following must be proved. For this rule to apply, the following must be proved. For this rule to apply, the following must be proved. Number one, non-natural use of land. Non-natural use of land. Non-natural use of land. Say this, hyphen. A way of using land that increases danger. A way of using land that increases danger. A way of using land that increases danger. Alafu ya pili, the escape is beyond the boundary of the defendant. The escape is beyond the boundary. The escape is beyond the boundary of the defendant's land. The escape is beyond the boundary of the defendant's land. Because if damage is within, then a claim for occupier's liability may be made. Because if damage is within, then a claim for occupier's liability may be made. If damage is within, a claim for occupier's liability may be made. So that is that. Those are the two issues. These are the two issues of strict liability. So we go to the next one, which is defenses. What are the defenses that you can use for strict liability? What are the defenses? What are the defenses you can use? Sema hivi. Ulikuwa umefungia mbwa yako vizuri na nyororo, mtu akakuja akafungua. Sema hivi. The escape was caused by the fault of the complainant. The escape was caused by the fault of the complainant. Umefungia ng'ombe zako dume pale ziko na rage, full of testosterone. Umezifungia vizuri na kamba. Mtu anakuja anazichokoza anazifungulia zinamkanyanga. Hatutamlipa. Juu zilikuwa zimefungiwa na ziko hazitoke hapo. Sasa yeye ndio amezifungulia zikamumi. Yes, number 2. The escape was caused by an act of God or nature. The escape was caused by an act of God or nature. At lightning ilitoka ikagonga tu hiyo waya peke yake. Ikafunguka hiyo waya nyororo. Nyingine. The escape was caused by the act of a trespasser. The escape was caused by an act of a trespasser. You have trespassed somebody's land, umbwe na kuumia huko. You can't sue them. The escape was caused by an act of a trespasser. Next one. The thing causing the mischief, was put on the land. The thing causing the mischief was put on the land with the complainant's consent. The thing causing the mischief was put on the land with the complainant's consent. Alafu ya mwisho. The thing was accumulated for the benefit of both the plaintiff and the defendant. The thing was accumulated for the benefit of both the plaintiff and the defendant. The thing was accumulated for the benefit of both the plaintiff and the defendant. Alafu ya mwisho. The accumulation was authorized by a statute. The accumulation was authorized by a statute. The accumulation was authorized by a statute. So we are going to stop there. We take a short break. Hiyo ni strict liability. Bado ya mwisho number 3 ni itoje? Vicarious liability. So tutaangalia vicarious liability, tutaangalia limitations in actions, alafu nigusie tort 2-3. The other ones will finish them up on Thursday. All right. Let's take a short break of 5 minutes. It's 7:04.
All right, let's continue. Natumaini umepumzika. Kwa sawa? All right, so we go to the last one. Inaitwa vicarious liability. So hii kitu inaitwa vicarious liability inatokeanga hivi. Is because of kuna relationship between an employer and an employee. So the question becomes this: is an employee an agent of the employer? Is an employee an agent of the employer? And the answer is yes. So as long as they are working for them. But then in some circumstances, an employee may do some things which he has not been authorized to do. And in such a case, the employee will be told, hiyo ni utagaramika peke yako. Also, sometimes an employer may hire somebody, but they hire them as an independent contractor. So if you're hired as an independent contractor, you shall be held liable as the independent contractor. This refers to the liability by one person
This refers to the liability by one person. This refers to the liability by one person for the torts committed by another. This refers to the liability by one person for the torts committed by another. This refers to the liability committed by one person for the torts committed by another. Liability by one person for the torts committed by another. All right. So this, e.g., employer-employee relation, e.g., employer-employee relation, employer-employee relation, e.g., employer-employee relation, e.g., employer-employee relation. Next one. Relationship between partners, relationship between partners, relationship between partners, relationship between partners, relationship between partners. Next one. Relationship between a principal and an agent. 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 Very good. Sema hivi, the liability arises because the liability arises because the liability arises because the liability arises because of the relationship existing, because of the relationship existing between the parties. The liability arises because of the relationship existing between the parties. Because of the relationship existing between the parties. Very good. All right, chukua ya kwanza. Liability of employer for the torts of the employee. Liability of the employer for the torts of the employee. Liability for the employer for the torts of the employees. Sema hivi, while the employee is in, service of the employer, while the employee is in service of the employer, while the employee is in service of the employer, when the employee is in service of the employer, when the employee is in service of the employer, comma, the employer shall be held liable, the employer shall be held liable, the employer shall be held liable, because the employer shall be held liable because it is a master and servant relationship, 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 because it is a master and servant relationship. It is a master and servant relationship. However, a contract that is independent, however, a contract that is independent, the employee shall be held liable on their own. Very good. Sasa, say this. An independent contractor is a person employed under a contract of service in which he is told what to do, but not how to do the work. But not how to do the work. But not how to do that work. So maybe The independent contractor has complete control. The independent contractor has complete control over how they do the business. The independent contractor has complete control of how they do the business. The independent contractor has complete control of how they do the business. The independent contractor has complete control over how they do the business. However, an employer can be held liable. However, an employer can be held liable. However, an employer can be held liable. However, an employer can be held liable for the torts of the independent contractor. For the torts of the independent contractor in the following circumstances. Ya kwanza, the following circumstances. Ya kwanza, the employer was negligent in hiring. The employer was negligent in hiring the independent contractor. The employer was negligent in hiring the independent contractor. So maybe, e.g., the contractor is not competent. The independent is the contractor is not qualified. Very good. Next one, number 2. The employer interfered with the work of the independent contractor. The independent contractor, the employer interfered with the work of the contractor by instructing him, by instructing him. By instructing him. Next one. The tort committed is of a strict liability. 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 Very good. Next one. The work that the independent contractor was hired for, is a tort itself. The work that the independent contractor was hired for is a tort itself. So hizo ndio So hapo normally tumesemaje, an independent contractor afai kuwa held liable for the actions of the tumesema normally an employer should not be held liable for the actions of the independent contractor. Lakini hizi 4 circumstances zinatufanya tuambie employer you will be responsible for the actions of the independent contractor. Because number 1, you are negligent in hiring, ulichagua mtu ambaye yuko qualified. Number 2, you interfered in his work, ukaanza kumpatia instructions ya kufanya kazi. Number 3, it is a tort of strict liability. Strict liability tumesema ni nini? Whereby you keep something that if it escapes, it causes damages, you'll be held liable. Alafu ya mwisho, the work that enye amepatiwa is a tort itself. Very good. The last subtopic. Tumemaliza hizo vicari. Tumemaliza hizo special liabilities. Ya kwanza ilikuwa ni occupiers liability. Ya pili ilikuwa strict liability, ya tatu ilikuwa vicarious liability. Now we go to the last one. The last one is called limitation of actions. The limitation of actions. What if mtu alikutukana 10 years ago, can you sue them? Can you still sue them? Can I 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 still sue them? Mtu alimtukana 10 years ago. Or mtu alivunja kioo yangu 6 years ago. Can I still sue them? For how long does it take before you can sue someone? Right now, Donald Trump is suing CNN. You know, Donald Trump. Do you know Donald Trump? Do you know Donald Trump? Do you know Donald Trump? Yeah? Amesue CNN for $475 million. Na atalipo, ngoja tu uko koti saizi. So anasema walimdefame 2 years ago, walikuwa wanapata false information. Ni ukweli. They gave a lot of false information about Trump. CNN 2 years ago. Do you know Johnny Depp? The guy who has acted Pirates of the Caribbean? Johnny Depp, when he acted Pirates of the Caribbean. That guy sued his former wife, Amber Heard. Akakuwa successful. The wife shared some false information in the media, and it made Johnny Depp lose his job, his career. And Johnny Depp has sued that wife, and he has recovered the money. Amelipa almost how much million, yes. So how long does it take? Alika almost 3-4 years alafu akamsue, akalikuwa na gather evidence. So it was limitation of actions. Sema hivi, limitation of action acts, limitation of action acts, limitation of action acts, limitation of action acts makes the following provisions, makes the following provisions on time limits, makes the following provisions on time limits, makes the following provisions on time limits for bringing actions in court, for bringing actions in court, for bringing actions in court. So as a number one, an action for damages, 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 an action for damages in respect of personal injury, 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 caused by negligence, comma, nuisance, or breach of duty, must be brought to court within 3 years. 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 So, chochote ambacho unafanya, hello, with regard to this one, please make sure you bring your action to court within how many years? 3 years. Usipitishe. Sasa, haya, tuende ya pili. An action of defamation must be brought to court within 3 years. An action of defamation must be brought to court within 3 years. An action for defamation must be brought to court within 3 years. An action of defamation must be brought to court within 3 years. Very good. Very good. Next one. An action for personal injury. An action for personal injury must be brought to court within 6 years. Umeandika vibaya. Umeandika an action for personal injury. An action not for. Personal injury, not for personal injury, not for personal injury. Must be brought within 6 years, not for personal injury. Must be brought within 6 years. Huh? Next one. An action for recovery of land. An action for recovery of land. An action for recovery of land. An action for recovery of land must be brought within 12 years. An action for recovery of land must be brought within 12 years. An action for recovery of land must be brought within 12 years. 12 years, within 12 years. Within 12 years. Yes. So, okay, umekosewa, please work within those times. Work within those times. Because if you don't work within those times, utaenda uambiwe your time has elapsed. Ungekuja mape? So, hiyo ndio hiyo. So, up to that point, we are good. That point, we are good. Now, andika hapo specific tones. Specific tones. Andika hapo specific tones. Number 1, tort of trespass. Specific tones. Number 1, tort of trespass. Number 2, tort of nuisance. Tort of nuisance. Tort of nuisance. Number 3, tort of defamation. Tort of defamation. Alafu number 4, tort of negligence. Tort of negligence. Tort of negligence. Tort of negligence. Now, I want to give you guys some assignment. I want you to write those words. Nataka summarize. I want you to summarize those words for me, and then I meet you guys to discuss. Now, I want you to DM me. Tell me hello, so that if to start mtume kwa group, unajua mtume kwa group kuleta issues aziko si issues. No, DM me says ni kutumia kitu haraka haraka. Tell me hey on WhatsApp. Take. Those ones I want you to specify them. I want you to summarize them. Where's your phone? Chukua ni DM. Tell me hey, alafu nikuforward hizi vitu. I want you to summarize these ones for me, so that when I come on Saturday, I can just discuss them. And don't forward this one to the group. Usiforward kwa group hizi ya group hii, ni notes zangu nimepiga picha. Sasa unajua notes zangu hazifai kwa group hizi. Alright, nimeiona ni mwanoni mtu mmoja. I see the second person. Very good. Now 3 people. Now I can be able to share. Alright, kuanzia hapo page 3. Kuanzia hapo page what? Eh? Una namba yangu? Una namba yangu 0715 718 539. Namba yangu iko kwa group. Very good, very good. Ndio nimekutumia. So hiyo ni tu. Enda page 3. 0715 718 539. Not 50. 50 ni my youngsters wajuzi kwa namba za 50. I'm old. 15 718 539. I hope you receive. End up on page 3. Angalia page 3 kuanzia page 3. Have you been able to see it, Esther? Page 3, end up page 3. Utakwambia utakao page 3. Don't write word for word. Summarize, read, understand, summarize. When I come, I will just discuss it. I'll discuss what it means for us. All right. Hujapata bado? Sasa. Ona huyo. Umenisave. Esther, have you been able to see it? Are you able to open page 3? Tunataka uone.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
15 718 539. End up page 3. Mimi nataka mwandie kutoka hapo page 3. Hope you're there. Wewe ndo unangoja nianze kusema tunataka niseme. Okay, niendelee. 15 718 539. Hapo page 3 ndo inaanza hapo mambo ya specific thoughts. Utaona hapo nimeandika specific thoughts on my notes. I want you to read about that one, to write a few things about them. Don't write word for word everything. All right. Then the remedies. What if somebody enters into somebody's land? All right. What is it? All right. To go through that one. You go there, you find something there. Defenses you can be able to use. All right. You come to nuisance. What is nuisance? Types of nuisance: private nuisance, public nuisance. What are the defenses you can use if you're causing nuisance? You can say, I've always made this noise here during this time. So you can't come in and tell me that I'm supposed to stop that noise because I've always made that noise. So that's an interesting angle of argument. All right, so that is that. So we'll stop there for today. And Carlos, you DM me. I share this one with you so that we are able to move together and make things easier. Because time is not on our side. Time is not on our side. We have to work within the time that is available. Yes, Sema. Yeah, miss you, me. Guys, have a nice week ahead. Stay safe, be safe. This Tuesday, wish you all the best in your work. Continue reading, start reading. I don't want to say start reading. I already told you to start reading. Continue reading your notes. Go through your past paper, go through that work. Check it, make sure it works. Malukora swali uliza, go through the past papers, you already have them. And then when I meet you on Thursday, I hope utakuwa summarize hizo specific thoughts hizo ine, and then I will discuss an overview to see what it means. So I'll do that for the next at least 1.5 hours. And then from there, we will be able to jump into our next major topic in the law of contract. We'll tutaangalia for another 1 week. And then from there, we look at the next week, but one tutaangalia the law of sales of good. And then kutoka hapo tutaingia law of property, that's another big law. Alafu kutoka hapo tutashikanisha indemnity na guarantee na law of insurance. Those two laws, law of indemnity na guarantee na law of insurance. Tutashikanisha mbili. And then from there, the first week of November, we will do something called governance. This unit is called law and governance. So November, the 2 weeks or 3 weeks of November, we will do governance. So the ball is in your court. Changamka. Acha nipatie jamaa namba yangu. Nataka tu flash. Guys online, stay safe, be safe.